intentional parenting. This is our 5th lesson. We're nearing the end already. So just to review a little bit of what we did last week. Last week we talked about creating an atmosphere in our home where a child feels safe and a child feels comfortable being able to authentically be themselves and able to make mistakes, and that they know that we'll be there to support them through that. Again, it's really a journey where we teach our children, and everything that happens is really a learning experience for them if we could keep that in mind. So the atmosphere we truly want to create in the home is one where a child can authentically be themselves, but at the same time they learn containment. And the way for them to learn containment is really through creating these rules in our home. We talk about set rules and flexible rules, and the set rules really have to do with their safety and well-being. And that's really the main point we want to have in our home, that those are the main rules that we have in terms of a child's well-being. And everything else, you first want to make sure that it's being addressed through the relationship that you have with your child. So I know that during our call that came up, for those of you that were on the call or those of you that were able to listen afterwards, we talked about starting to create flexible rules. And sometimes when we start seeing that we're creating so many rules, you want to really stop and ask yourself, what can I do in my family, or what's going on in my home that I can create the atmosphere of what I want to see, versus setting up a rule to be able to create that, okay? So for instance, if a child is having a hard time with eating, with dinner or things like that, instead of looking directly on what's the rule I'm going to set in order for my child to eat his dinner, for instance, if you don't eat, you're going to bed hungry, which is a rule that we do want to set, okay? Don't get me wrong, it's not that we don't want to set it, but you first want to look at everything else that we're setting up for that child to see, are we putting in place things that will motivate the child to step up to the plate and naturally, do those things, versus it having to be an issue that we have to address. So it would be, for instance, am I cooking, for instance, right? This is an important piece that people don't realize. Just cooking in the home, there's a lot of smells, and it starts getting the gastric juices going. So now the child feels hungry. You know how it is if we walk by a restaurant and you smell, something that smells delicious. Even if you weren't hungry, it makes you, crave something to eat. So we want to really create that before. Am I sitting at the table with my child, so it's a social experience also, or am I feeding them? So those are things that you really want to look at first. Like, have I created that atmosphere for my child first, where it's just a natural part of what we do in our family, versus it having to be a rule that we set and then we feel that we need to police it, okay? So the main idea is really that, yes, we want to create rules. Yes, we want to create this framework for our children because we want to teach them containment. But again, we never want the rules to be at the expense of the relationship and the atmosphere that we want in our home. So since last week we spoke about creating consequences, and those consequences are really to be able to eliminate unwanted behaviors, what we're going to look at this week is really about leverage and incentives so that we can encourage positive behaviors that we do want to see in our home.